Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. I am honored that you would spend some time with me tonight. I gotta say, I'm completely gassed today. I nearly fell asleep in court today as they were playing this long video that was important to cover. Like it was a interview, right? It was an interrogation video. It lasted an hour and 3 minutes, and I came so close to just falling asleep. So I'm a little gassed. I've not submitted my article for the day yet. I wanted to get to our video tonight on time instead of delaying you guys, and then I will write up my report for tomorrow morning's publication. So let's just see where we are, shall we? We are discussing the case of Maddie Soto. Quick little primer on this is that Madeline was a 13-year-old Kissimmee, Florida girl. She was purportedly or reportedly by her mother's on-again, off-again boyfriend, a man named Stephen Stearns, dropped off at her school on February 26th of this year, which was a Monday. Maddie had just had her 13th birthday party the day before at her grandparents' home. Anyway, he said that he dropped her off at school, and when Jen, Maddie's mom, went to go pick her up, she was nowhere to be seen. Police were eventually called, and ultimately, Mr. Stearns was arrested on 6 counts of SA, 60 counts of SA and possession of CSAM images and other files. Now, the question that we have now, the one that I want to address today is, when is Stephen Stearns going to go to trial? Because there is some news that came out a couple days ago, Monday, in fact, that Mr. Stearns made his first ever court appearance. And I actually have, I guess I need to push this button over here. Where is it? Let's make sure this works. There we go. I didn't test things very well before I started today. Sorry about that. This is a article from AroundOsceola.com. Stephen Stearns makes first ever court appearance Monday. And I'm just going to read it real quick. Now, I know that others have covered this, but we're going to take a little different tack in our conversations. For the first time, Stephen Stearns, the man prosecutors have charged with SAing and murdering 13-year-old Kissimmee teen Madeline Soto, made an in-person court appearance Monday. Stearns, with a neatly trimmed beard and haircut, he does have a neatly trimmed beard in this low-resolution photo and a haircut, did not speak during his brief appearance at Monday's status hearing for his trials. He entered the courtroom shortly before the 10-minute hearing and was let out immediately after it concluded. This is pretty typical, by the way, guys. Mr. Stearns' case is not given any special treatment here. I cover these kinds of hearings all the time, and yeah, they will have, in a day, they might have 60 of these things. And they just lead defendants in. Aside from the murder, the state has charged him with 60 counts of battery, lewd and lascivious molestation, and possession of CSAM material. Charges filed by the state's attorney's office after searching his phone and Google Drive after Soto was reported missing back on February 26th. The state attorney has filed to seek the death penalty against Stearns, who remains, I've got a little bug, in the Osceola County Jail. It looks like my volume's a little hot. Let's pull that back. It appears that these wheels of justice are moving slowly. Assistant State Attorney Danielle Peniel noted no depositions have been done or been scheduled among the many witnesses in what are now separate cases. Remember, they always were separate cases, okay? The one has to do with the CSAM stuff and the SA stuff, and the other is the murder case. They were always filed as different cases. She said the murder case has many more witnesses. Public defender Beth Borden, surrounded by a defense team of 3 other attorneys, told Judge Keith Karsten that she is currently on another death penalty case and has 2 others on her docket. She asked that the case be scheduled for 2027, but Karsten said that would test the bounds of what is reasonable. Karsten then set new pretrial hearings for Stern's case, noting the case with the 60 counts has fewer hurdles standing in the way. He tentatively scheduled the case for a pretrial hearing on Wednesday, February 12th, 2025, and for a trial docket of February 24th to March 14th. He set a pretrial hearing with discovery and deposition update deadlines of September 10th, 2025, and a trial period to start September 22nd. Okay. So that was the news, and that got everybody's kind of hearts all aflutter and stirred up, saying, "Oh, okay, we're going to move into the trial part of this thing." But I want to just give you a kind of a inside baseball view into the court system. Now, it's not really inside baseball because I am not inside the court. I'm not an officer of the court. I'm not a lawyer. I'm none of the things above. What I am is a reporter that reports on this kind of stuff day in and day out. I cover these hearings all the time. I cover trials all the time. And I know how long it takes for these kinds of things, which reminds me of, I'm going to bring you guys over to a couple of documents. Okay. These are not new. These have been available for a long time. Let's get you to the right. I really should have gotten my buttons correct here. Okay, so this was filed back in July 9th of 2024. If I can show you guys, hopefully it will get me to the right. Yeah, let's see. No, hold on. Let's close this. Let's go over. I want to show you. I've put a link to this website down in the description below, so you can search Stephen Stearns by his name, and you will find that there are 2 open cases against him in the Osceola County clerk's or court on the clerk's website. What was I getting at there, though? Oh, and when you open them up, one is the murder one, right? This one is the murder one. This one, it has all the counts against him on the first case. These documents are available for anybody to see. Okay, they don't require payment or anything like that. Just go ahead and check these out at any time. So the document that I want to show you is the one from 7-9. It's a motion to continue. Okay, now comes the defendant, Stephen Michael Stearns, by and through the undersigned attorney, pursuant to Florida Rule of Criminal Procedure 3.190F, and moves this court to enter its order granting a continuance of the above styled cause as grounds in support of this motion. The defense would show that pretrial conference is scheduled to be heard the following day, that additional time is needed in order to prepare this case for trial. Upon the court's granting of the motion, defendant waives speedy trial. Okay? That this motion is filed in good faith and not for the purpose of delay. The state does not object to this motion to continue. Defense requests that this case be continued to track defendant's other pending case. Wherefore, the defense moves this court to enter the court granting the continuance. And then I think this one, scheduled the status hearing for this Monday. Okay, they granted the that motion. And when the motion was granted, the defense waived the right to speedy trial. Now, I was looking up what is the typical amount of time that the state of Florida takes, well, specifically in the 9th district, how long does it take for a trial to go or a case to go all the way to trial? The answer is it depends, right? But I did find that there is a backlog of cases starting with the pandemic. I found information that in 2022, they renewed funding for reducing the backlog in the courts, and as late as June of 2024, a candidate for a judgeship saying that the backlog still remains. That candidate was complaining that his opponent was taking work off on Fridays instead of clearing the backlog. So there is a huge backlog in Florida anyway. I think the Florida statute says that it has a speedy trial has to be done in the first 175 days, something like that. So we're talking 6 months. But in this case, they waived the right to a speedy trial. What does that mean? Well, that means that this is going to go on for a long, long time. I do not expect a trial to happen for Mr. Stearns anytime in 2025. Like, I think the chances are so low. Like, I'd almost want to say I'd eat my truck if if it happened. Like, I'm not saying that, but like, that's how I feel about it. I'd almost bet the farm on that. That whenever I bring this up, because most defendants do waive their right to a speedy trial, whenever I bring this up, I tend to have people in the chat that are a little upset with me, going, "No, this thing everybody has a right to a speedy trial. It should just move forward." Well, everybody does have a right to a speedy trial that is guaranteed by the Sixth Amendment, unless they waive that right. Now, what are some of the reasons that they would waive that right? It mostly has to do with preparation for trial. And the more complex a case is, the longer that preparation will take. Let's get Mr. Stearns' face off here. Let's look at Maddie. For example, the case that I'm looking at, or that I'm reporting on from court right now here in Western Pennsylvania, really isn't all that complex of a case, because both the prosecution and the defense agree that the defendant did indeed kill the victim. And they're stipulating a lot of things. They're arguing over whether he's responsible or not. So it's really not even that complex of a case, and yet it took about 21 months to come to trial in the state of Pennsylvania. Let me show you a couple of other documents here. I think this was filed. I'll bring it to you. Give me just a second here, guys. Doesn't say when it was filed. Give me just a second. I'll look it up. It was filed 7/10, the following day after that motion to continue. And they then made an order to appear on Monday. So that's what happened. And then this is a document that set the pretrial hearing and trial date. So the pretrial is 2/12/2025, and the jury trial is 2/24/2025. This is for the CSAM and the SA case. Okay. So when you clicked on this video, basically I was saying there's no chance that this is going to be a speedy trial, and there really is no chance. I really believe that with all my heart. So let's look to see what you guys are saying in the live chat. Janet says, "Gavin, I'm wondering if after convicted and sentenced for all the SA charges, Stephen Stearns will wise up and just plead guilty to the murder charges. Thoughts?" Well, when we look at the charges filed against Stephen Stearns, I didn't prepare the right button. Dang it. Okay. This was back in March, okay, when the state's attorney, Andrew Bain, announced the charges against Stephen Stearns. He's facing 8 counts of sexual battery, 5 counts of sexual battery, of a child under 12, 5 counts of a child 12 to 18, 7 counts of lewd or lascivious molestation, 40 counts of unlawful possession of CSAM, 10 or more images. I honestly, when I look at that, guys, over here, I think that each one of these is a different child. That's what I think. I think each one of these is a separate time that Stefan Stern did that. Each one of these is a different time that they can establish, and each one of these is a different time. So 1 through 20, I think, are Madeline. And then 21 through 60, I think, are basically 40 different children. Let me go back over here. We learn in this press release that the sexual battery on a child under 12 is a capital felony. So it's a capital offense, punishable by life in prison if a defendant is convicted. Charges of sexual battery to a child 12 to 18 and lewd or lascivious molestation carried sentences of up to life in prison if they're convicted. And if convicted, a defendant can receive up to 15 years in prison for each count of unlawful possession of materials depicting, well, basically CSAM, right? So by my count, that is 20 life sentences plus 600 years that he's looking at if they did it consecutively. So getting back to your question, which I think, where was it? Right here. Will he wise up and plead guilty? I think it's going to depend on what they offer him. I think Stefan Stearns realizes that at the very least, he is going to spend the rest of his life in prison. So it very well could be that he would plead guilty if they would take the death penalty off the table or something like that. I think that the prosecutor would very much like this to not end up in trial. I think he'd very much like to plead this out. And I think the leverage that he has in the state of Florida anyway is that many of these, 8 of these counts, are death penalty counts. So if they take death penalty off the table, that gives Stefan Stearns a life in a prison for the rest of his life. And so it doesn't matter if he pleads guilty to the murder charge. That's what I think. We'll see what happens. Great question. Coloring with Pat and Wilson. Gavin, why does the defense lawyer take the case if she has 3 cases ahead of this one? Can the defendant be made to get another lawyer? In this case, Mr. Stearns' attorney is a public defender. The case was assigned to him or her. I think it's her. I can't remember. Give me a second. Who his? Doesn't say specifically. Let's go back to that, to the article. So the lawyer is Beth Borden, and I think that she is probably the chief public defender. Let's see. She's an assistant public defender in the greater Orlando area. So I think she was probably just assigned the case. Now, the defendant can get another lawyer by paying for one. And there could be some circumstances under which he could get a different lawyer in the public defender's office. But I believe that he'll have the same issues with the same lawyer in the public defender's office. By the way, public defenders aren't necessarily bad lawyers. I think they get a bad rap. I think many of them are like very good lawyers. It's typical that they might be young lawyers. But in the case that I'm covering at work right now, Mr. Roberts, who is the public defender, he's the chief public defender in that county, is very good. In fact, I've been watching this case now for 2 straight days. Well, 3 if you count jury selection. And I have to say, I'm really impressed with this guy. And it's not that I'm unimpressed with the prosecutor, but I think that the defense is doing a very good job of planting seeds even before they even start their defense in the jury's mind that his client is not guilty by way of legal insanity. So like she could be a very, very good attorney. I think he'll, but I think the case against him is so strong that I think he'll probably plea. Chrisamir? Did I say that correctly? Gavin, I made a live, sort of, love your channel and all your work. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Built to help art. Gavin, why? There's so much evidence I'm cross-eyed. What do you think they're spending so much time on? I can only imagine it's to get Gen 2. Okay, that's a good question. Like, if they're sitting there going, well, we really need to prepare for this case, and I think to answer your question, Art, the defense's job is to mount a good defense, a solid legal defense. And to a lawyer, especially a defender, that is sacrosanct. That is, they play a very important part of the judicial system. So even though it may be obvious that he is guilty, their job is to mount a good defense. So yeah, I think that they will take as much time as they need. I think Mr. Stearns knows that he's never going to see the light of day again anyway, so it doesn't matter that he's in the county jail as opposed to a state prison, right? So it probably doesn't matter to him how fast it goes. I think the only person who really has an incentive to make this move along more quickly is the judge, to get that docket cleared. That's what I think anyway. That's just me though. Aliyaha for life. I probably just butchered your name. I'm so sorry. Gavin, love your lives. How does Stearns possibly think taking this to court will help him? Well, at this point, guys, that's the thing that we have to remember, is that this is a process. It is in the process. Yeah, he could have pleaded guilty like right at the beginning. He could have said, I did it. Let's move on to sentencing. Right? He could have done that, but I think he's probably trying to avoid the death penalty. I think that's really what it is. Call me Al, or Alabama. There's a capital A-L there. Unrelated, but did you cover the Wisconsin trial of Darrell Brooks? I didn't, but I watched it I didn't watch the entire thing. I just saw lots of coverage of it. And that was a crazy trial. And I personally thought that the judge showed a lot of restraint, even though there was plenty of criticism. Let's see. Where would he find 40 other children to do this to when he was always at Jen's? Nifty 50, those 40 counts aren't essaying children. It is possessing basically child porn. And my guess is that it is 40 individual children, because each count says unlawful possession of materials by a child, 10 or more images. So remember those 34,000 images that were on his Google Drive? I think that's what we're talking about here. Let's go over to this one. Let's see. KJ. I don't know if he'll plead guilty. He told his parents if his lawyers will listen to him and he has a chance, he might come home. Yeah, he did say that. I mean, I remember reading the emails and so forth. I don't think that early on it had really, I don't think that he had realized what trouble he was in early on. But I mean, maybe he's holding out hope. Let's see. I think death penalty have specific training or qualifications. Am I right? Lori, I'm not sure that I understand your question. As far as like, does a case qualify for the death penalty? In the state of Florida, there are, I didn't put on do not disturb. In the state of Florida, they passed a new law in the last couple of years relating to the essaying of children and making it a capital offense. As it stands right now, it is a capital offense, but it's likely to be struck down by the Supreme Court of the United States if somebody ever gets convicted of it. Like, I honestly think it'll be struck down, but it will require a conviction in order to do that. So yeah, in the state of Florida, there are capital murder charges, and then there are capital felonies such as essaying children. Let's see. Danielle Coro says, this might be an ignorant question. I know Jen has that specific type of immunity, but is she immune from testifying during the case at all? Thank you. Love your channel. Danielle, great. I think that's a great question. And the only way that we stop being ignorant is to learn, right? So the immunity that she enjoys is called derivative use immunity. It has to do with things that she told police under oath. She gets immunity from that interview and the interviews beforehand that could have led or may lead investigators to learn things about the crime, right? So she has immunity from those things as long as she didn't lie, is basically the deal, right? Also, if they could find a way around to get to that piece of information without using her testimony, then she wouldn't have immunity from that. So that's all derivative use immunity is. Does she have immunity from testifying during the case at all? No. She may be called as a witness. She may be subpoenaed. And if that is the case, she would need to testify. However, she does enjoy protections of the Fifth Amendment, right? Give me a second. Yeah, she enjoys, like all of us, the protections of the Fifth Amendment. Let me bring that up real quick. Fifth Amendment, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment of indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject to the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. That's the clause, right? So getting back to your question, I can't remember where that was. Right here. A person cannot be compelled in the United States to be a witness against him or herself in any proceeding, in any criminal case. So if she were to go on the stand and testify of things that she knows that were not covered by her derivative use immunity, that would implicate her in the crime, then that would just be stupid to do. Her lawyer would not allow her to do that. I hope that answers your question, Danielle. Let's see. Diana says, I can't remember if there's actual forensic evidence for the essay. Is there? I think probably what you're asking, Diana, as far as forensic evidence is if there's any DNA, like any of Madeline's DNA on him. To my knowledge, we don't know that yet. But what they do have is digital forensics, where they have photography allegedly taken by Stephen Stearns himself engaged in sexual behavior with Lil Maddie. So I think that qualifies as forensic, but not in the, I guess not in the traditional sense. Let's see. Amanda. Gavin, I've been following this case since the beginning, and the one thing I'm still not 100% on is, has Stephen Stearns just been staying completely silent? Has he said anything about this beyond the jail calls? Now, I think once he lawyered up, I don't think that he has said anything at all. But we'll find out. I mean, as we continue to do sunshine law requests and FOIAs in Florida, we might find out that there's other things. Maybe he talked to another inmate in jail, or maybe he talked to one of his jailers, or maybe he was recorded saying something. We don't know. But so far, we don't have any indication that he said anything beyond the interviews that he did with police, both at the apartment complex and at the sheriff's station, and then the stuff that he shared with his parents in the jail. Great question. Schmoopy. Hey, Schmoopy. Selling, trading, so sad to know there's so many others like this. Yeah, it is. It really, really is. Let's go to another one. Michael Harrison. Gavin, in the past, these type of individuals tend not to talk due to their horrendous character, but not all have DP hanging over them. If he does, do you think he'll talk and implicate JS in any way? Well, his parents seem to think that he should. I think that based on the videos that we watched, last week and the beginning of this week of Jen Soto's interview, and then the audio that we listened to of the interview she did in the presence of her attorney, I do think that police think, what am I trying to say? I think that police do have a case against her. I don't think they have any direct evidence yet. Otherwise, I think we would know that. And if they had direct evidence, maybe she would be arrested already. So I think most of their evidence is probably circumstantial. But I do think that they have a case against her already. I really do. Will he implicate Jen? I don't know. Jen seems awful loyal to Stefan. I wonder if Stefan is loyal to her back. So I don't know. Great question though, Michael. Love it. DC, any thoughts on the Delphi case right now? None that I want to share right now, but I am keeping my eye on it. The thing that there's so much drama around the Delphi case that when I've covered it, man, I've just invited a whole avalanche of weirdness on me. And so until there's something huge, I probably won't be adding anything. Lisa Pizza. Hello from Northeast PA, I think is what that means. Do you think the murder of JonBenet Ramsey will ever be solved? No, I really don't. I don't. Sorry to say. That's one of those things where, like, if you guys know, I'm very passionate about the case of Ellen Greenberg, right? Very passionate about it. And this is one that we're now coming up on 14 years past her death, her murder. By the way, there's good news in the Ellen Greenberg case I'll share in another video, but I think that if her parents succeed in getting the death certificate amended to have the manner of her death classified as a homicide, I think that will really only open the doors for some kind of civil action against anyone they believe might have killed Ellen. I think that the police did such a horrible job investigating the case in the beginning that any criminal action that may have been taken earlier on probably couldn't be taken, 14 years later. And that's kind of how I feel about JonBenet. Oh, I'm sorry. Coloring with Patton Wilson. It's the lawyer that has to have different qualifications because the team is needed for the defense. Yes. In order to try a death penalty case, there are qualifications that the lawyer has to have. That is true. Thanks, Patton Wilson. LB says, Gavin, how could he plead not guilty with this amount of evidence? Could he be going for insanity? Is that even possible? So insanity is a legal defense strategy. And there are bars to being able to plead that. You can't just say, hey, our defense is that I'm insane. There are legal requirements of an insanity defense. So I don't think that he can do that. But how could he plead not guilty with this amount of evidence? I honestly think he's holding out to get death penalty off the table. I think that's it. I will say that I have covered cases just this year in my area where like the jury deliberated in one of them for like 24 minutes. It was so obvious, and there was so much evidence piled against the defendant. I could tell that like the prosecution was angry that they had to do this at all. He should have pled or pleaded. I'm still unclear on what the past tense of that is, but it is his right to have a trial by a jury of his peers. That is, that again is codified in the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendments, right? So it is his right. And so he can take it to a jury and they might deliberate for 3.5 minutes and call it good. And I was talking to another reporter today, like during a recess in court. Or maybe it was yesterday we were talking, but anyway, I told him if I were in this defendant's shoes, I would have taken it to trial as well, because there's like, if you plead guilty, it's 100% chance that you're found guilty. And if you go to trial, you have a small chance. You have a chance, and it might be small, but it might be big, that you could be found not guilty. It's actually in our system of jurisprudence, it's very difficult for a prosecutor to prove guilt. Like, it is a high bar, right? Beyond reasonable doubt is a high bar. And so I think if I were Stearns, thank heavens I am not Stearns, but if I were him, I would not plead guilty this early at all. Robin's Landing, any update on the pregnant Amish case? Great question. Let me take you guys so that you know what is going on. Let's get over to the website here. And in fact, give me a second. Let me set up a button for me. There we go. Let me make sure that works. Yeah, good. All right. So if you go to my website, go to cases, near the top, there is the case of Rebecca Byler. Rebecca Byler was a 23-year-old Amish mother of 2 who was pregnant with her 3rd child that was stabbed to death in Spartansburg, Pennsylvania. So getting back to the question, any update on the case? The latest update that I learned 2 or 3 days ago is that the trial date has been pushed from November out into March, I believe. Let me look at this. Yeah. So the trial has been pushed from November to March, and this is a very typical thing. Just like this case with Stephen Stearns, when they set a trial date or in a pretrial conference, they have to do that by law. And so they put it at the earliest available spot in their calendar. Usually, there are other factors too. But as they move closer and the defense and the prosecution start making motions to the judge, it gets pushed out. So Rebecca won't happen at least until March. And I would not be surprised if it was 2026 in that one. That one is a complex one. Angela says, whoa, you're saying they retroactively gave her immunity for the other interviews? That is what the lawyer and the police agreed to at the beginning. If you listen to that recording, that is what happened. Gavin, have you heard about Tim Miller? He's the founder of Texas EquiSearch. I have not, but I'll look him up. Thank you. Mooney, one of my favorites, the OG. But she did lie over and over and over and over. Yeah, I think that a lot of those questions in that interview they were questions designed to catch her in a lie. They knew the answer to the questions. They asked the questions hoping that she would answer incorrectly. And I, like you, Mooney, believe that she did. I thought it was just her not getting in trouble for lying in previous interviews and then immunity applied to in station interview with their lawyer only. Yeah, maybe you're right on that. I think that's splitting hairs a little bit, but I think that if she's not getting in trouble for lying, then she's been giving immunity for those lies, I guess. I don't know, but yeah, let's say you're right on that. That's fine. I stand corrected. Teresa Lovos, GF, the case of his daughter and other victims of the serial killer is so interesting. You could cover that history and talk about him and his work. Are you talking about John Wayne Gacy? Because yeah, I can't remember what case that is, but I have seen her posting on Twitter and so forth. Pretty cute. I don't know. Gavin, do you think this could be a child P ring? Yeah, I do. Let's see. Gavin, on a more lighthearted note, would you ever consider doing ASMR storytelling videos? Your voice is so relaxing, but these topics are not. The channel is dedicated to true crime. Now, I've been doing a lot of live streaming this year. Previous to this year, I did a lot of more documentary storytelling type videos. I hope that I can go back to kind of peppering in a couple of those every once in a while, telling a true crime story, but ASMR, probably not. Gavin, do you think her bio father will file a civil suit against JS and SS? Only if he thinks that he can get something out of it. And I don't think that they have anything to get. Like let me make this very vague. I was alerted to the existence of something that could be considered libelous about me. And when I looked it up, I was just like, okay, yeah, I don't like this, but I mean, how much money do I want to pay for justice? Right. And what is the upside of that? And in that case, there's just no upside. So I just ignore it. And I'm not a litigious person anyway, but if the bio dad thinks that he can get something out of it, then I think he would probably go for it. Now, I mean, maybe he could go after Chris and Deb. Maybe that's possible. I mean, that's what the Petitos and Schmitz did against the Laundries, right? In the Gabby Petito case. So maybe something like that. Let's see. Gavin, I think if they put Stefan and Jen in an interrogation room alone at the beginning, they would have spilled enough beans to take them both down. I think so too. Yeah. Remember, like, they were sitting in a car for like 4 hours while the police were, looking in their apartment and stuff like that the first night. I wish the police would have had one of those laser microphones just pointed at one of the glass surfaces just to listen to that conversation for 4 hours, because I bet they spilled a lot of beans. I think they were everywhere in that car after that 4 hours. Let's see, Reagan, those charges are from Stefan's phone. They have not even finished going through the ones from the hard drive. Yeah, that we know about. They might be adding charges. That's a good point, Reagan. Gavin, is there any way or reason that somehow they could get the pictures thrown out at trial? Well, only if, there are probably legal doctrines or case law that applies. But the two things that I guess appear to my mind, that would prevent them from doing that is, number one, Stefan is on record as saying, yes, you can, here's my phone and you can look through it. That's number one. And number two, they got a search warrant for the phone and for Google. So, I mean, unless they did something, they lied on the application or they did something untoward in that search warrant application process, I think they're probably okay. I think they probably got it airtight. Holly says, I think the immunity deal was she must be honest and only lies can be held against her, Gavin. That's not what, well, let me think about this. Because I did some research on this. Let me go to my blog. Man, I need to write in my blog because I've got so much about, I've got so much about the Kirby Carpenter case. Let's see. Yeah, so if they can gather independent evidence against her that isn't tied to her testimony, she could face charges. And then if she lied during the interview, she could be charged with perjury. More importantly, if the prosecution can gather independent evidence. No, I think they said that she must be truthful in that. We'll have to go back and listen, Holly. Let's do that. Gavin, do you do any coverage on Leilani and baby Quentin? I haven't yet. I've really been focused on Madeline for the last little while. Those are great questions, everybody. And now the last thing that I want to get to is a couple super chats. Thank you, Emily Y. I deeply appreciate your super chat. Built to Help, Art, thank you very, very much. And then thank you, Joanne Murdoch, for the super sticker. And Joanne, I don't think that I recognize your name, so you might be a first commenter here. If you're not, I apologize. It's just, I tend to see the same names that interact with me a lot. And if you are new, thank you and welcome. Guys, tomorrow we are going to be kind of swinging back over to the Micah Miller case. Now, I've covered Micah pretty extensively here, but what is happening over the last month is Pastor J.P. Miller is now starting to sue people for defamation. And I think it's hilarious. Not for the people being sued, but I think there is stuff that we can kind of pick apart in the good pastor's lawsuit. So come back with me tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern. We're going to be diving into J.P. Miller and his lawsuit against a woman who apparently told Robbie Harvey something that Mr. Miller finds defamatory. We're also going to go back through anything that I've said in the Micah Miller case just to see if I have crossed that line, which I do not think I have. But that is the plan. All right, guys. And thank you very much for working with me as I am covering this case during my day job. It is kind of wearing me out. I work a day job normally anyway, but having to work an entire day in court and then write up something it's gassing me for sure. So if I have to kick it a little bit later tomorrow, please just be understanding that is what I have to do. And with that, hopefully I will see you back here tomorrow. Don't forget to like and subscribe and do all the things. With that, I bid you adieu. See you tomorrow. Take care. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.